I was cast aside when my mom stole the college fund my father left me for her stepson, but Grandma's will turned the tables by giving me the house, so I packed their bags and showed them the door. Yet what came after shook everything I thought I knew. It was a cold evening, the kind where the wind howled through the trees, rattling the windows like a warning. I was in the kitchen, washing the last of the dishes from dinner. My mother, Rebecca, stood by the counter, scrolling through her phone, smiling at something on the screen. Lucas, my stepbrother, sat at the dining table, casually twirling a pen between his fingers. Richard, my mother's new husband, leaned back in his chair, swirling a glass of whiskey like he belonged here more than I did. "So, Lucas," Richard said, his deep voice cutting through the quiet, "have you thought about where you want to go for college?" Lucas grinned, setting his pen down. "Still deciding. NYU or maybe Stanford. But you know, it's all about the funding, right?" My mother's face lit up. "Oh, sweetheart, we'll make sure you go wherever you want. Don't even worry about that." I stopped scrubbing the plate in my hand, my stomach twisting. Something about the way she said it. It didn't sit right. Richard cleared his throat. "Actually, Rebecca and I were just talking about that." My mother put her phone down and turned to me, her expression unreadable. "Evan, we need to talk." Here it was. That sinking feeling I'd learned to ignore for years reared its ugly head. I dried my hands on a towel, forcing my voice to stay calm. "What's up?" She hesitated. "It's about your college fund." A sharp chill ran through me. My father's college fund, the one he had set aside for me before he passed away, the only thing he left behind that was truly mine. "What about it?" I asked, my fingers tightening around the towel. Richard exhaled, like he was the one burdened by this conversation. "Well, it's just sitting there, Evan. And Lucas, well, he has such a bright future ahead of him, we thought it would make sense to put it to good use." Silence. A thick, suffocating silence that only I seemed to notice. I let out a dry laugh. "You're joking, right?" Lucas shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. My mother folded her arms. "Evan, don't be dramatic. You're already in college. You're doing fine. Lucas needs this more than you do. I need it. It's mine." My voice was shaking now, the anger rising faster than I could control. Dad left that money for me, not for Lucas, not for anyone else. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line. "And I'm telling you, it's not just about you, Evan. We're a family. We help each other." Richard took a slow sip of his whiskey, watching me like I was some unruly child throwing a tantrum. "Look, son, I'm not your son," I snapped, my hands curling into fists, "and you have no right to touch my father's money." Richard let out a low chuckle, shaking his head. "You've got quite an attitude, kid." My mother sighed heavily, rubbing her temples. "Evan, you don't need to make this harder than it has to be." "Oh, I think you've done a pretty good job of that already." Lucas finally spoke up, his voice careful, measured. "Look, man, if it's that big of a deal to you, I don't need the money." But my mother shot him a glare so sharp he immediately shut his mouth. And that's when I knew. This wasn't just Richard's idea, this was hers. My own mother was willing to steal from me for the sake of her new perfect family. I felt something break inside me. I straightened my back, my voice calm but firm. "You're not taking my money," Richard scoffed. "And what are you going to do about it?" I looked at my mother, searching her face for something. Remorse, guilt, hesitation, anything that would tell me she knew this was wrong. But she just stared back at me, unblinking, and that was my answer. I swallowed hard and stepped away from the counter, my jaw clenched so tight it ached. "You know what? Take it." My mother's expression softened slightly, as if she thought I was giving in. I shook my head. "Take it, but don't expect to see me again." And with that, I walked out of the kitchen, leaving behind the family that had already left me long ago. I didn't go back to my room that night. I walked straight out of the house, my breath forming white clouds in the cold night air. My hands were clenched into fists, my heart pounding in my chest. I had nowhere to go, but anywhere was better than staying in that house. I ended up at my best friend Jake's apartment. He didn't ask questions when he opened the door, he just took one look at my face and stepped aside. "Dude, what happened?" he finally asked after I sank onto his couch. I let out a humorless laugh. "They're stealing my college fund, giving it to Lucas." Jake's jaw tightened. "You're kidding." I shook my head. "Nope. Apparently he has a bright future, and I don't need it." "Wow," Jake muttered, running a hand through his hair. "Your mom, I knew she was messed up, but this is next-level betrayal." I didn't say anything. I just sat there, staring at the floor, feeling the weight of it all sink in. "So, what are you going to do?" Jake finally asked. I sighed. "I don't know, man. I told them if they take it, they'll never see me again," Jake scoffed. "Yeah, and do you think they care?" That was the worst part. I wasn't sure. I didn't go home that night or the night after. My mother didn't call. Neither did Richard. The only message I got was from Lucas. Lucas, hey, I didn't ask for this. Just wanted you to know that. I stared at the text for a long time before finally typing back. Me, then don't take it. He never responded. A week passed. I crashed on Jake's couch, went to my classes like normal, tried to pretend my world hadn't just collapsed, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. And then, out of nowhere, my grandmother died. I found out through a brief text from my mother, Mom, your grandmother passed away this morning. The funeral is on Saturday. That was it. No, are you okay? No, I know you were close to her. Nothing. Just a cold, clinical statement. I stared at my phone, my stomach churning. My grandmother was the only person in my family who had ever truly cared about me. She had been the one to comfort me when my father died, the one who still sent me birthday cards, the one who saw through my mother's lies and manipulation. And now she was gone. I knew I had to go to the funeral. Not for my mother, not for Richard or Lucas, but for her. The day of the funeral was gray and bitterly cold, the sky overcast, the wind sharp against my face. I stood at the back of the church, watching as my mother played the grieving daughter, dabbing at her dry eyes with a tissue. Richard stood beside her, his arm around her shoulders. Lucas was there too, looking uncomfortable in his suit. I kept my distance. When the service ended, we walked outside to the cemetery. I kept my hands shoved into my coat pockets, my jaw clenched. I wasn't sure if I would say anything to my mother, but then I heard her talking. I just think it makes sense, she was saying in a low voice to Richard. The house is too big to sit empty. We should move in. I stopped in my tracks. She was talking about my grandmother's house. She hadn't even been buried yet, and my mother was already planning to take everything she owned. A bitter taste filled my mouth. I turned and walked away before I could say something I'd regret, but I knew one thing for certain. If my mother thought she was going to take what didn't belong to her again, she was in for a surprise. I didn't go home after the funeral, couldn't. But I didn't have to wait long before my mother found me. She called the next day not to ask how I was, not to talk about Grandma, straight to business. Evan, she said, her voice carefully controlled, we need to discuss the house. I let out a dry laugh, gripping my phone tighter. The house? You mean Grandma's house? The one she hasn't even been gone a full week for? Don't be dramatic, she snapped. You knew this was coming. It makes no sense for the house to sit empty when we could… We? I cut in. Who's we? She hesitated for a split second. Richard, Lucas, and I. We're planning to move in there. It was the final insult. I clenched my jaw. You don't own that house. There was a pause, then she sighed, as if I was the unreasonable one. Evan, we can work something out. It's too much for you to handle on your own. You mean it's too much for you to accept that it's not yours to take? Her voice hardened. Evan, don't start this. Grandma would want family to live in that house, not let it go to waste. I almost laughed. Yeah, then it's a good thing she left it to me. Silence. A long, stunned silence. What? I took a slow breath, savoring the moment. Grandma left the house to me. Her voice dropped to a deadly whisper. You're lying. Am I? I said, enjoying how her confidence cracked. Because I already met with the lawyer this morning. The will is clear, the house is mine. And then she lost it. You ungrateful child, she spat, her mask completely slipping. After everything we've done for you. I laughed. Everything you've done for me? Like trying to steal my college fund? Like treating me like I don't exist? No, Mom. This time, you don't get to take what's mine. Her breathing was sharp, furious. You can't do this. You wouldn't dare kick us out. I grinned. Who said anything about kicking you out? I paused, letting the suspense build. You can stay if you pay rent. The sound of her furious breathing filled the line. You wouldn't. Try me then. For the first time in years, I was the one to hang up on her, and it felt really good. I didn't hear from her for 2 days, but I knew it wasn't over, not by a long shot. On the third day, I got a call from an unknown number. I didn't answer, then another, and another. Finally, my phone buzzed with a text. Mom, we need to talk. This isn't right, Evan. I ignored it. An hour later, a voicemail. Evan, you're being childish. We're your family. You can't just abandon us like this. Call me back. I deleted it. Then, just as I was getting comfortable, my phone rang again. This time, it was Lucas. I stared at the screen for a moment before answering. What do you want? He sighed. Look, man, I didn't ask for any of this. I just don't want things to get worse. I almost laughed. Worse? You think things can get worse? Lucas hesitated. I know Mom's screwed up, okay? And Richard, I know he's an ass. But this whole rent thing, you don't really mean it. I leaned back, gripping the phone tighter. Oh, I mean it. Lucas let out a slow breath. Come on, Evan. You're not like this. You don't have to prove a point. I'm not proving a point, I said coldly. I'm setting boundaries, something none of you ever respected. There was a long pause, then Lucas's voice dropped. You know she's not going to let this go, right? I closed my eyes. I know, and I was ready for it. I knew it wasn't over. My mother never backed down when she wanted something, and now she wanted the house. The next day, I was at work when my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't her. It was an unknown number. I ignored it. Then another call, and another. By the fifth one, I picked up. Evan Carter? The voice was sharp, professional. I frowned. Who's asking? My name is Mark Dawson. I'm an attorney representing your mother and Richard Turner. They would like to arrange a discussion regarding your grandmother's estate. I almost laughed. A discussion? You mean they want to steal from me legally now? Pause. I can't comment on that, but I strongly encourage you to meet with us. It's in everyone's best interest. I leaned back in my chair, gripping my phone tightly. You can tell my mother I'll see her in court. And I hung up. That night, I got home to find a car already parked outside. Of course. I sighed, walking up the steps. Before I even reached the door, it swung open. My mother stood there, arms crossed, her face tight with barely concealed anger. Richard was behind her, arms folded like some kind of bodyguard. And Lucas, he just stood there looking exhausted. What on earth is this, Mom? I asked, stepping inside. She didn't waste time. You've pushed this too far, Evan. We tried to talk to you civilly, but you've left us no choice, I scoffed. Oh, no choice but to sue me? Her jaw tightened. You're being ridiculous. We just want what's fair. Fair? I let out a cold laugh. You tried to steal my college fund, and now you want to steal my inheritance. What's next, my bank account? Richard stepped forward, his voice patronizing. Now, son! I turned on him instantly. Don't call me son. He exhaled through his nose, clearly irritated. The house is too much for you to handle alone. Be reasonable. We're family. No, I shot back. Family doesn't do what you've done to me. Lucas finally spoke. Evan, man, just talk to us. You don't have to do this. I turned to him. His voice wasn't aggressive, just tired, maybe even guilty. You don't get it, do you? I said. I've spent my whole life being walked over by this family. I'm done. You can stay in my house if you pay rent. My mother's face turned red. You are not going to charge us rent, Evan. That is completely what? I interrupted. Unfair? Cruel? Unreasonable? Funny, because that's exactly how I've been treated for years. She inhaled sharply, hands trembling with rage. We raised you. We gave you everything. My blood boiled. You raised me? Dad raised me. And when he died, you stopped giving a damn. Her mouth opened, then shut. For the first time, she had nothing to say. Richard cleared his throat, stepping forward again. If you refuse to work with us, we will fight this legally. I held his gaze, completely unshaken. Go ahead, waste your money. The will is airtight. I checked. More silence. Lucas shifted uncomfortably, his face tense. Then my mother did something that surprised even me, she begged. Evan, please! Her voice cracked. You don't have to do this. We're your family. I stared at her, the same woman who had ignored me, belittled me, stolen from me. And now she wanted my kindness. I took a deep breath, then I stepped closer. You can stay, I said softly, if you pay. Just like anyone else. Her face twisted. You're heartless. I smiled coldly. No, I just finally learned from you. And with that, I turned and walked upstairs. For the first time in my life, I was in control, and I wasn't giving it back. The silence in the house was different now. It wasn't the usual indifference I had grown up with. It was thick, charged, filled with barely contained resentment. For the first time, my mother, Richard, and Lucas realized that I wasn't backing down, and they hated it. First, they tried ignoring me. For days, no one spoke to me unless absolutely necessary. My mother avoided me in the kitchen. Richard locked himself in his office. And Lucas, well, he mostly kept his head down, fine by me. But then the small inconveniences started. The Wi-Fi mysteriously stopped working. Someone turned the heat down to nearly freezing at night. And my personal favorite, my laundry, which I had left in the washing machine, was suddenly found dumped on the basement floor, still wet. Petty, predictable, pathetic. I didn't react, and that pissed them off even more. One evening, about a week after the confrontation, I came home late from work to find Lucas sitting on the porch steps. He looked up when I approached, rubbing his hands together against the cold. "What do you want?" I asked, unlocking the door. He sighed. "Can we talk?" I hesitated for a moment, then walked inside, leaving the door open behind me. He followed. We sat at the kitchen table. Lucas looked down at his hands. "This whole thing is a mess, man." I raised an eyebrow. "For you or for Mom and Richard?" He sighed. "For everyone." I leaned back, crossing my arms. "If you're here to convince me to back down, don't waste your time." He shook his head. "I'm not. He hesitated. "I don't know, Evan. I didn't ask for any of this. And yet you're benefiting from it." Lucas winced. "I didn't know they were planning to take your college fund, I swear." I studied him for a moment. I wanted to believe him. Maybe part of me even did, but that didn't change anything. "You still took it." He looked away. "I didn't have a choice." I scoffed. "That's nonsense, and you know it." Lucas exhaled sharply. "I didn't want to be the favorite, Evan. I didn't want this." I tilted my head. "Did you ever tell them that?" He fell silent, and that was all the answer I needed. Finally, he spoke again. "You're really making them pay rent?" I nodded. "Yeah." He let out a small laugh, shaking his head. "They're losing their minds over it." I smirked. "Good." Lucas looked up at me, something different in his expression. Maybe respect, maybe regret. I don't know. "I don't know how you put up with them for this long." I sighed. "I don't either." For the first time in years, we sat in silence. Not awkward, not tense, just two people who had been caught in the same toxic family finally seeing it for what it was. Lucas exhaled. "I should go." I nodded. "Yeah." He hesitated at the door. "I'm sorry, Evan." I didn't reply, and then he left. The next morning, my mother broke. I was making coffee when she stormed into the kitchen, slamming a folder onto the counter. "This is insane." Her voice was sharp, angry. "Charging your own mother rent? Do you even hear yourself?" I took a sip of my coffee, unfazed. "I hear myself just fine." She jabbed a finger at the papers. "We can't afford this." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh? Then how were you planning to afford this house if you had won?" She clenched her jaw. "That's different." I smiled coldly. "No, it's really not." She let out a shaky breath, switching tactics. "Evan, we're family. We're supposed to take care of each other." I tilted my head. "Like how you took care of me." She flinched. "It's not the same." I leaned forward. "It's exactly the same. You never cared when I was the one struggling, but now that you're the one paying the price, suddenly it's unfair." She stared at me, lips pressed tightly together. Then she did what she always did when she wasn't winning. She played the victim. "I just don't understand where I went wrong with you." Her voice cracked, full of fake emotion. "I raised you better than this." I met her gaze, steady and unyielding. "No, you raised me to be useful to you, and now that I'm not, you don't know what to do." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I wasn't falling for it. "Not anymore. You have two choices," I said, my voice calm. "You pay rent or you move out. But you will not take from me ever again." She let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head. "You'll regret this, Evan." I took another sip of my coffee. "No, I won't." And for the first time in my life, I meant it. The first rent payment was due on the 1st of the month. By the time the 31st rolled around, I knew they wouldn't pay. I sat in the living room scrolling through my phone when I heard my mother's voice behind me. "Evan!" I didn't look up. "If you're here to beg for an extension, don't bother." She exhaled sharply. "I just need more time." I finally looked at her. "You've had time. You just didn't think I'd go through with it." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "You're really making your own family homeless over a stupid grudge?" I smirked. "No. I'm making my tenants pay rent. If you can't afford it, you move out. That's how the real world works." Her eyes flashed with anger, but she held it back. "Richard and I are trying to figure something out. We just need a little flexibility." I leaned back. "Richard drives a brand new car. You go to the salon every month. You had money when you thought you'd get this house for free." She swallowed hard. "This isn't fair." "Oh?" I tilted my head. "You thought it was fair when you tried to take my college fund?" Silence. I stood up, walking past her. "You have 24 hours. The next morning I woke up to the sound of suitcases being dragged down the stairs. I didn't bother checking. I just sat at the kitchen table, drinking my coffee. Richard stormed in first, face red with frustration. "You've really outdone yourself, kid." I smiled over my cup. "And yet, I still own the house." He clenched his jaw. "You'll regret this." I took a slow sip. "Doubt it." He muttered something under his breath and walked out. Lucas passed by next, carrying his backpack. He hesitated in the doorway. "Guess this is it." I nodded. "Guess so." He sighed. You know, I don't blame you. I raised an eyebrow, but he gave a weak smile. But I kind of wish things had turned out differently. I shrugged. Me too. And then he left. My mother was the last one. She stood in the doorway staring at me. I hope you're happy, she said, voice cold. You destroyed this family. I met her gaze. No, Mom, you did. She swallowed hard, her face twisted between anger and something else, something that almost looked like regret, but I didn't care anymore. I watched as she picked up her bag and walked out without another word. The house was finally quiet. Not the uncomfortable silence I had grown up with, not the forced politeness of people barely tolerating each other, just peace. I exhaled, letting the weight of it all sink in. For the first time in my life, I was free, and it felt really good. Atia? Atia for making my mother and her family pay rent, or was I just setting boundaries? Hey Reddit, it's been a couple of weeks since everything went down, and honestly, I don't know how to feel. For those who didn't see my original post, long story short, my mom and her husband tried to take my college fund, then tried to take my inheritance after my grandmother passed. I refused, made them pay rent to stay in my house, and when they didn't, I evicted them. Now I live alone. The house is peaceful, my finances are secure, and for the first time in years, I don't feel like I'm being used. But here's the thing, even though I know I was right, it still feels weird. The silence is different now. Not the kind I craved when they were constantly in my space. This one feels heavier, lonelier. There's no more tension, no more fights, just me sitting in this big house with nothing but my thoughts. Did I go too far? Top comment 1, dude, you did what you had to do. They were using you, plain and simple. If they really cared about you, they wouldn't have treated you like an ATM. Stay strong. OP's response, I appreciate that. Logically, I know I was justified, but emotions don't always work logically, you know? I don't miss the way they treated me, but I guess I miss having a family, even a shitty one. Top comment 2, you threw your own mother out on the street over money? Hope you enjoy your peace while she struggles. OP's response, she's not homeless. She moved in with Richard's relatives. And let's be real, she had no issue trying to screw me over financially. But yeah, sometimes I wonder if I should have given her more time. Top comment 3, setting boundaries isn't cruel, it's self-preservation. They took from you without remorse, but now you're supposed to feel bad? Nah, don't fall for it. OP's response, I hear you. I really do, and I don't regret standing up for myself. But does standing up for yourself have to mean standing alone? Top comment 4, hey, it's me, Lucas. I saw this post and I don't know. I get why you did it, but you're not the only one who lost a family that day. OP's response, man, I don't even know what to say. I didn't think you'd see this. You were always caught in the middle, and maybe I didn't give you enough credit. If you ever want to talk, you know where to find me. I don't know if I'll ever fully stop questioning my decision. Maybe time will help, maybe it won't. But for now, all I can do is move forward and figure out what comes next.